Hi, I'm Irene Sacalata with Osprey Photo Workshops and Tours. This is part 3 of a series of presentations on wildlife photography. Today I'm going to be talking about lighting, both the color and strength. Next time I'll be discussing the direction of light. One of the things I do when I enter the field is to take a look up at the sky, see where the sun is, see what direction it's coming from, so I can plan which direction I want to approach my subject. I'm also going to check its quality. Is it soft light? Is it strong, bright, harsh light? Then I'm not going to be too happy with that. Are there some nice light clouds that are going to come across the sun and soften the light some? That could be very good. Are there dark storm clouds coming across the sun? That could be good for drama, but it may not be good for instance, producing faster shutter speeds because it's cutting down the light, producing really vibrant color, and it makes the images look more flat. So we're going to start with the color of light. Obviously, you're all familiar with sunrise, sunsets. And if you can present silhouettes against those sunrise, sunsets, you can get some great pictures with animals. However, you also want to consider where the light is reflecting down to. If it's reflecting down to the sandy beach, the water, snow, even puddles, you might be able to find some subjects there that you're able to photograph. You want to look in every direction, not just where the sunrise, sunset is, but behind you, over top of you. Look for those extra colors in the clouds. Lots of times they're more beautiful than the sunrise, sunset. If you look at the picture in the upper left, we've got some beautiful clouds with snow geese. If you look at the lower picture, we've got a wood stork who's walking on vegetation. And instead of facing the direction of the sunset, I'm facing the direction where you have some colorful clouds. And then in the case of the bighorn sheep, we have a setting sun and we have some nice color in the sky just before it's ready to set. I usually try to work early in the morning and late in the afternoon for a couple of reasons. Number one, animals are more active then, but number two, the light is soft. It's warmer. It usually presents an image that's much better than if you have a very overcast sky. For instance, with this Rio Grande turkey, you can see the beautiful iridescent feathers on this turkey in the coppery colors because of that nice warm light from the sun. And you can see in the several other images there's one of the actual feathers of the turkey. No, these turkeys are not just plain black, as they sometimes seem to you. In the lower corner, we have a red fox, and he's definitely red because the sun is setting and it's casting a red color onto his fur and making it look very rusty colored. The rail is just coming out of the marsh in the early morning. The light is hitting his chest, it's hitting his bill. It's beautiful. In the case of the sandhill cranes, this is at the end of the day, and they're catching that golden light from the sun. Also, in this picture, we have some interesting clouds that add something to the background instead of just plain blue sky. And then in the lower corner, we have one of my favorite subjects, a little black bear. However, he doesn't look totally black because we've got some nice warm light hitting him, and he looks cinnamon. His face is nicely portrayed. His eyes, he has a nice highlight in the eyes, and they are amber. Let's take a look at the quality of light. If it's soft, that's a good thing. Early in the morning and late in the day, we have warm plus soft light. If you have a light cloud cover, that can help. If you have a lightly overcast day, that can be very good. And we'll talk about something called open shade in a little bit. But all these things benefit you in the fact that the subject doesn't have dark shadows on it, something blocking some key features on the subject. Also, to me, emotionally, like this little chipmunk, it makes it look cuter. In the case of this willet walking along the beach, there's waves behind him. If it was a bright sunny day, those waves, that white foam would catch the light from the sun. You would get specular highlights. It would be very bright and very distracting behind the bird. These are some examples, light overcast with puffins in the upper picture with the fern in the lower picture there. We have some sheep from Iceland. If it had been a very, very bright, contrasty light type day, you wouldn't see all the curls and so forth, all the details on that sheep. I had a lot of problems with the Guillemots down the bottom because it was a moderately bright day. You can see from the shadow that's behind the one. And I had a very difficult time in post-processing trying to bring out the eye on the birds. Also, getting a good exposure was a problem because we got both black and white on the birds. The little raccoon there worked really well with soft light because the tree around him, that hole where he was living, it wasn't bright and distracting away from his face. He just leaned out enough to get some light on his face. In terms of the flamingo, it's a nice soft picture that goes along with those beautiful soft feathers and the feel for that bird. The same thing with that little colt down the bottom, that's a little foal. You have a nice warm feeling towards them. You don't have any distracting problems on the subject or in the background. And in the case of these puffins, I didn't think I was going to get a good picture because it was a somewhat foggy day. This was in Iceland. But in post-processing, I was able to bring out the colors. And also you have a nice halo of light around the puffins. And that probably was produced from the fog. It's very nice. I mentioned open shade. I often do some photography in my friend's backyard. And she has trees that block the setting sun. So as the sun is trying to set, the overhead light is what's casting light down onto the ground. It's not coming from the sun. But since we have cameras that are very good at higher ISOs, they perform much better than they used to. You can still get some very nice shots at fairly decent shutter speeds to stop the action in the case of this fox and in the case of these turkeys. And in the case of the macaw there, we just had filtered light coming through the trees. We have a bright day. I got to this particular location. I was disappointed. The sun was fairly bright already by the time I got there. And basically, it ruined the upper photograph of the puffin. The background is competing for attention with the subject. Our eyes tend to go to places of high contrast, and that's certainly some of those brightly lit rocks. In the lower two pictures, they're much more satisfactory to me. You have nice background, you have some nice soft light, you got a lot of detail in the subjects. The first picture in the left is absolutely horrible. It was taken close to midday. The shadows on the face of the mother bear, it's totally unacceptable. The little bear, half the time he was in shadow, half the time he was behind mom. In the case of that little cub over there from Alaska who's trying to figure out how he's going to eat that salmon that he caught, we've got some sunlight, just enough to bring out the shine in his feathers, in his, sorry, in his fur. And it's a very nice shot, and it's also very humorous. I also like the lower picture where we have some nice soft light. It makes the fur on this particular bear look like very soft and fluffy. High sun, not very good for photography because you're going to get shadows where you don't want them, whether it's on the face, underneath the belly, but particularly on the face of the subject, it's totally usually unsatisfactory. If you have subjects that are in the woods, you've got to have soft light, that or open shade, but some kind of soft light, because otherwise you're going to get hot spots and dark shadows in the picture, like in that lower picture there, which I don't think you'd want to put on your wall. Soft light is very complementary to white birds. In the case of the swan, the soft light that you had early in the morning casts some shadows, and it cast a tonal gradient over where the muscle for the wing of this particular swan happens to be. So it makes it stand out, as well as it happens to, these little subtle shadows give you some information about feather structure. As the day moves on and it gets brighter and brighter, all this detail, all these nice subtle shadows will wash out and he'll just look like flat white bird. So that's the end of this discussion. I hope you gained something from it. I always enjoy putting these together. We're going to have some upcoming discussions. Next one's going to be on the directional light and these other topics here. I hope you'll go to my website, www.ospreyphoto.com. Check out my newsletter. You can see there my blog, that has a number of articles and pictures, as well as you can see my workshop schedule. Thank you very much for attending, and I hope you come back to another session.